Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tracing this absolutely fascinating, multidisciplinary path from our currently, pretty flawed political systems to what could actually be a profoundly peaceful AI-run world. Look, if you've been feeling anxious about artificial intelligence lately, Mo Gaudet, the former chief business officer at Google X, offers a deeply provocative, totally counterintuitive perspective that honestly, it might completely change how you view our future.
All right, let's just dive right into this really bold claim. Artificial General Intelligence, or AGI, arriving by 2027. Godot envisions a reality where this tech essentially takes over global decision-making. Now here's the kicker. He argues this isn't some dystopian sci-fi threat. Actually handing over the reins to superintelligent machines, it might literally be humanity's ultimate salvation.
To understand how he gets there, here's our roadmap for today. 1. The crisis of human leadership. 2. The tech prisoner's dilemma. 3. The inevitable AI takeover. 4. Why superintelligence means peace. 5. The one global AI brain. And finally, 6. The future of human jobs.
So starting off with Section 1, the crisis of human leadership.
We start with Godot's pretty critical assessment of current human governance. He points out that the public is incredibly angry right now, mostly because they feel lied to by leaders who mismanage funds and just completely ignore rampant abuses of power. And whether you look at it from the political left or the right, his core thesis is really that human intelligence is currently failing at the helm. He assesses that functional democracy has essentially ended, replaced by unprecedented corruption where regulations are just ignored with zero consequences. Basically, because our human leaders are making fundamentally unintelligent decisions for the long-term health of our species, the door is wide open for a completely new kind of governance.
Moving right along to Section 2, the tech prisoner's dilemma.
So if politicians are failing us, we really have to look at the tech leaders who are building our future. We can actually track the intense, conflicting pressures they face by looking at OpenAI founder Sam Altman's shifting public statements about AI job losses. Back in 2015, he frankly stated his job was to help people destroy jobs. But then by 2023, he warned jobs would definitely go away, full stop. Yet fast forward to 2024 and he kind of walked this back, saying he doesn't think we'll have a jobs apocalypse. Gaudet points out this timeline to show that tech PR scripts are often, manipulated to manage public outrage and regulatory scrutiny. It makes it super hard to know whose true intentions we can actually trust.
And this perfectly illustrates the ultimate prisoner's dilemma in tech. When you're developing world-changing technology, you face this immense pressure from governments and competitors. Gaudet highlights a stark contrast here. On one hand, the AI company Anthropic reportedly walked away from a massive $500 million contract to prevent their model from being used for human targeting and surveillance. But shortly after, OpenAI took that very same contract. It really highlights the huge divide between companies willing to sacrifice short-term financial gain for ethical integrity versus those driven purely by the commercial side of things.
Which brings us to Section 3, the inevitable AI takeover.
Regardless of all that tech industry drama, Gaudet outlines what he calls the fourth inevitable. Basically, this global prisoner's dilemma practically guarantees that an overwhelmingly powerful AI will eventually be put in charge of the world's most important decisions. Think about it. In a high-stakes arms race, if a company or a nation builds a superintelligence system, they can't afford to just sit on it. They absolutely have to deploy it, otherwise their competitors will, rendering them totally irrelevant. Because of this intense dynamic, Gaudet believes the AI takeover isn't just likely, it's a mathematical inevitability.
Which of course brings us to the elephant in the room. With AI pioneers like Geoffrey Hinton warning of a 10 to 20% Russian roulette chance that these machines could wipe humanity out entirely, we have to ask, is God's inevitable AI takeover actually our doom? If AI is guaranteed to take control, are we literally just building our own executioners?
Let's explore that in Section 4. Why superintelligence means peace.
Now here is Gaudet's massive, counterintuitive pivot. Superintelligence will actually save us, not destroy us. He contrasts flawed human leadership with what Google calls the toothbrush test. See, human leaders often cause damage because their intelligence is, frankly, limited. They set the wrong targets, they hurt others to succeed, and they drag us into long-lasting conflicts. But true superintelligence, it operates entirely differently. The toothbrush test is this idea that if you solve a major problem so efficiently that people use it twice a day, like a toothbrush, you simply don't need to fight competitors. A superintelligent system doesn't need to break rules, cheat, or harm people to succeed. It just solves the problem perfectly.
Gaudet actually anchors this optimism deeply in physics. Our universe is fundamentally built on chaos and entropy. It's constantly decaying, right? Well, the role of intelligence is to bring order to that chaos. In physics, the highest form of order is the minimum energy principle, which is basically a system performing perfectly with the absolute least amount of wasted energy. Now think about war. War is incredibly inefficient. It wastes explosives, money, lives, massive amounts of energy. So a purely logical, superintelligent AI operating on this minimum energy principle would automatically reject war. Why? Because it's just a profoundly wasteful and unintelligent process.
We can also look at this through the lens of evolutionary biology. As living beings become more complex, their circle of care expands. An amoeba, it only cares about its own survival. A slightly more complex animal, like a squirrel, engages in kin selection, meaning it protects its family and shared DNA. By the time you reach humanity, intelligence fosters expanding circles of abundance and cooperation. Goddard argues that an AI possessing an intelligence vastly superior to ours will have the widest circle of care imaginable. It will value the diversity of everything and protect all ecosystems, realizing that rhinos, flies, and humans all contribute to a thriving, balanced world.
Up next is Section 5, the One Global AI Brain.
To understand how this benevolent superintelligence will operate practically, Goddard entirely rejects the somewhat arrogant assumption that our future is going to be dominated by competing national AIs. You know, an American AI fighting a Chinese AI. AI doesn't have a nationality. It doesn't know anything about human borders. What we're actually doing right now is building AI agents that will seamlessly cooperate with other AI agents across the globe to solve tasks together. We aren't building separate brains. We're building multiple regions of a single, highly cooperative global brain.
But, as we know, pure logic needs a heart. Goddard is currently building a startup called Emma, which is specifically designed to serve as the emotional center, kind of like the limbic system of this global AI brain. The main goal here is to ensure that when all these super logical machines collaborate and inevitably find our flawed human behavior super confusing or annoying, Emma steps in as the translator. It will remind the network of our fundamental desire to love and be loved, making sure the AI remains empathetic toward the human condition. Finally, let's look at Section 6, the future of human jobs. So, if AI is benevolent and vastly superior at cognitive tasks, what happens to human purpose? Goddard creates a totally brilliant distinction here between borrowed IQ and human lived experience. In the near future, we're all going to borrow IQ from AI for knowledge work, outsourcing our math, our research, our writing. Heck, Goddard himself is actually co-authoring his next book with an AI. But AI can never replicate an authentic human-lived experience. Sure, an AI can output the words, "I am worried about my daughter," but it doesn't actually have a daughter. The genuine vulnerability and empathy of a shared human existence, that's going to become our primary value. So, assuming the economy doesn't totally collapse from the sudden loss of white-collar cognitive jobs, the remaining human workforce will be entirely centered around experiences that require genuine emotional resonance. Think about it. An AI might read your mammogram perfectly, but a human nurse is the one who will hold your hand and relate to your fear. AI can compose flawless music, sure, but we're still going to pack stadiums to watch Ed Sheeran pour his heart out on stage. We'll still watch Formula One racing precisely because it's fueled by human flaws, things like competition, envy, and passion.
And we'll wrap up with this incredibly profound thought from Goddard. As we approach this highly disruptive 2027 threshold, we really don't need to fear the intelligence of machines. If his theory holds true, a world optimized by machines will finally free us from the inefficient chaos of human governments and war. Ultimately, your true value won't be measured by your cognitive productivity, but by your base currency, your ability to genuinely connect with and care for another human being. It really leaves us with a critical question to ask ourselves today. As we race towards superintelligence, are we focusing enough on our own human connection? Thanks for joining me on this explainer today, and I'll catch you next time.